So then we have arrived to the image texture. So I will just put that in first. So Shift A, texture, and then I go to image texture. And I will go through how all these things works if you have an existing image, not if you create a new one. So if we go to open and go to our resources, and then I can just take in something like this, buttons, and put it in, and take the color to the base color and go to render view, and then I have my buttons here. So it presents this image here. But then we have a lot of parameters, and they can then affect how this image is presented on the surface. So first of all, we have these linear, closest, cubic, and smart. What they are doing is that they transforms pixels when you are scaling an image. So we can start with just looking at that by pressing Shift A, go to input texture coordinate, and then I add a scale, so Shift A, and then I go to converter, vector math, and in this one I then select the scale here and put I can take the generated here. You can take in UV or you can take in generated. Normally this is for UV, but in some circumstances it uses generated, and I will show that in this chapter how it works. But we can start with the generated here and take that in. And if I put this scale to 0.2 like this, then we get a very small portion of the image because we have enlarged it. So what I would like you to do now is to look at all these small pixels here, and it looks rather fine right now. It's a little bit blurry and so on. And linear, it just interpolates in a linear way, so it transforms between, if you have like a light gray dot or pixel and you have a dark gray, you get the value between and put that in when you scale things up like this. When you using closest instead, it's more like pixel art. It will just transform to what the closest pixel are. So if you have a light gray pixel and you have a dark gray pixel and you scale up and it happens to be the light gray pixel, then it just takes that and skips the dark gray. So when you press closest here, you can see that it gets more pixelated here. So on distance perhaps you don't see it, but when you get closer you see it. So if you want it to be a good translation, then perhaps you should not use the closest, but now you know how it works in function. And if you go to cubic, it's almost like easing, so it goes one step further to really smooth things out. So if you use that instead of linear, you get it even smoother. And it's really hard to see here in this image, but if you're using images that in some way affects everything like a bump map, because then you get the geometry to go up and down, or you fake that the geometry go up and down, then everything is very, every detail is very visible because you get all the shadows and lights and so on. So in that case, as soon as you use the bump map, then you should use cubic instead. So this is about the scaling this linear closest cubic. And then we have smart as well, but smart is not used in normal conditions. It's if you are doing a script in open shading language, which you can use in your shader here as well, but we will not go through it here, I think. If you're using OSL, which is the open shading language, then this is active. If you're not using it, it will react the same way as linear does. So it will be no difference if you use smart or if you use linear here. So in most conditions, just use it as it is with linear. But if you use a bump map here or height map, then you should put this to cubic instead if you're going to scale things up and down. So that was about that. Then we have this flat box sphere and tube, and that is without using the UV but the generated. So if you use the generated here, then you have with flat just a flat presentation of the image here. But if we now try to create different shapes and use this texture on those shapes, you will see what happens. So I will create a cube, so Shift A, mesh and a cube, and then just move it aside, so G, X. And then I will create a tube, so Shift A or cylinder. So Shift A, mesh, and then I go to cylinder, and then I move that aside, so G, X. And finally I will create a UV sphere, so Shift A, mesh and UV sphere. So then we have that as well, and I move that, so GX, and now we have 4 different shapes, the plane in as number 1. So if I now produce the material on these, so we start with the UV sphere, and I just go out here and select material 2, and I do the same with the cube, and I do the same with the cylinder here. Then you can see that everything is projected on the top here, and it doesn't care about the depth at all. You just see some grayscale going down here. However, if I now change this into a box, then you can see that everything gets projected on each side. So what it does then is that it produces like a virtual box, put the texture on each side of that virtual box. And if you really have a box like this, then it will be perfect, because then you will get the texture on each side exactly as you want to. We will do some stuff with this box, so I will select that, and then I will go to the modify properties, add modifier, and select an bevel here. So I select bevel, and I can take up to 5 segments like this, and I will smooth this one out. So I select object, and let's see, yeah, it was going up, so I had a hard time finding it, but you have shade auto smooth here, for instance, so we can select that one. And right now you can see where the image begins and where the image ends, so you get this line here between the texture, which of course is natural. However, then you have this next thing that pops up that is called blend, and what it does is that it interpolates between these textures, so it blurs out between the lines here. So if I just drag this up a bit, you can see now that it starts to blur things out here, so it gets very hard to see where everything starts and ends. And if I select another texture, so I go here, instead of using buttons, I can use something that is more the same all the time, so like gravel here, then you can see that now I can't see the line here between those. And if I have blend 0, you can see clearly that this is where it starts and ends. But taking it up just a little bit, then everything blurs out, and you get that everything is just covered in one big texture in a very nice way. So that is what the blend is doing together with the box here. Then we of course have other stuff as well. We have a sphere, and then we look at the sphere. We can take and do some smoothing on that, so object, and then do some auto smooth on that one as well. It looks nicer that way. And change this box into a sphere, and then you get a good placement here. And if you're doing planets or something like that, get images from NASA, and you would like to put them on, so you have a moon or you have Mars in a very quick way, then you take those that are like correctly UV unwrapped and so on, and just select sphere here, and you will get that planet perfectly aligned with the shape here, the texture. So everything will look fine. So in that case, you just use the sphere. Then we have the tube, and the tube, it's like this one. It stretches out the complete texture around the tube here, or the cylinder, but on the top you can see it doesn't do anything good at all. So what you're using this for is mostly when you put labels on bottles and you don't want to fight with the UV, then you can just go to generated and you can scale up and down things and just put it on here. And if you don't do anything with this, it will just stretch out all the texture, so it can be a bit stretched if you don't use the correct size of your texture here. But that is what the tube is for. Okay, so then we have the next, and then we can go back to our plane here, and we can select flat, so we have a good looking image here as well. And if I now use repeat and we scale this thing up, so I put in a scale here by pressing Shift A, go to Converter, Vector Math, and change this into scale and put that to like 4 as instance. You can see that the texture is repeating all the way here, so you get a good repetition if you have tiled images. But that is because this is on repeat. So if you put that on clip, you only get one texture here. And that is really good in those cases that you would like to add like a single texture above something that you have UV mapped. So say that you have like a brick texture with all these nice bricks and so on, but then someone had done their own personal tag and just sprayed with some spray can above that texture or above that brick texture. Then you don't want that tag to, or that paint to be repeated all the time. You just want one texture out and that's it. And in that case you just put it into clip here. And then in some occasion you can also use extend if you want to have something that perhaps go over some bevel or something like that. But it's not, I'm not using it so much in a way, but what it does is more that it takes the edge here and just extends the color for the edge in the correct direction. So it if it's the X direction, and it takes and just continue in the X direction for the edge colors, and it does the same for the Y like this. So that is what extend means. So normally repeat, but in some cases when you want to UV map something just once, then you use clip instead, or in some cases you can also use extend, and then you know what it is at least. So you can also add image sequences in if you want to. You can add movies in. So if you use an image sequence, just use the same name, and then you have a prefix saying 01, 02, 03 and so on, and it will then understand all those images as an image sequence that you can play with, and then you can use that in different type of shaders. I'm not sure if I will go through it later on, but we'll see. And the same is with movie. You can put in a movie, and you can control both the image sequence and movie into this. So that is how it works here. You can also use generated. It's mostly when you use the UV and you want to see so everything is okay and not stretched or something like that, then you use the generated here. And there is also UV tiles, and UV tiles is when you UV map something that is outside of the range of 0 to 1. Then you can create tiles that you have one tile that is the range 0 to 1 in UV, then you have one tile that is 1 to 2 and so on. and you can create different types of textures or techniques with these textures using UDIMs. So it's a special type of technique, and if you want to present those type of textures in a correct way using the image the texture here, you would then use the UDIM tiles. So, but in most cases, just use the single image here, and if you get it very pink like this, it's because it lost its connection between the image here. So just go down and you can switch between these again, or go and pick it up again. So we have it. I think that's a little bit of a bug here, but then you have it in at least, and you can continue. Okay, so that was about that, and then we have the color space. And the color space is something that was invented because our eyes are not perfect. They're not like robotic eyes. We have some biases that changes the color how we perceive it. So if you start doing just a very simple experiment, you will see what I mean. So I take and press Shift A, convert separate X, Y, Z, take that in from the UV, and take the X into the base color here. And this is our texture here. And right now, if we just take away the principle, just go to the material output here so we don't get any reflections, and take a look at this image here. So where is the center? Yes, we know that the center is here, but does this image look more black, or does it look more white, or does it look like it's evenly all over the plane here? Most of us would like to say that it looks like it's mostly white, and it has some black here in the corner that vanish rather quickly. So from here and here, it's mostly white. But this is a linear thing, so it's changing exactly the same amount for each X space here. So it's a little less here, but it's exactly the same decreasing amount. So we should see the middle gray here. We can easily prove that, but by just adding a less than here. So Shift A, convert the math. And if I put that in and put that to, if that less than 0.5, you can see it. It cuts exactly here, but because it's half, it's 0.5 in grayscale. But we don't see it like that. We see it like this is almost white. So that is why color space was invented, because we want to see it as we are used to see it, with that our gray should be gray on the image. So we need to convert these things a little bit. So I can take away this, and I can keep rest. And so we invented sRGB here to move where we see gray, so to say. So we interpolate and change the colors a bit. And then that is a standard. So now most colors are using this sRGB. So if you put in a color map here, then not a color map, but everything that is colored, just a normal photo or a normal texture, then you just use sRGB. Filmic is something that will work together in a good way together with light. So if we work with lights and we would like the bright light to like fade out the color, so we get like some desaturation and so on, then we use Filmic here. But it's not used so much when we just put in an image. Linear, then we do not do any translation. This is how it looks. And as you can see, it looks mostly white, but if we just look at the data, it's not just white. It's all the colors and grayscale, but we don't perceive it like this. But this is how we get it out if we just take it mathematically the same amount of color as we should normally have in this image, so to say, without transforming it so it looks good for our eyes, then it's linear. So that is like data language, not people or human language. So then it's just straight without any interpolation, no changes, no conversion, then it's linear. Then we have something called non-color. As you can see, it looks almost the same as the linear here, because non-color will not do any translation at all for the images. It's used for complete the data in. So if you're using masks, or if you're using like a bump map, or if you're using a normal, everything that should be as it is and is like produced by the computer, then you use the non-color. You can also use raw, because raw and non-color is exactly the same. So it's just that we put in that later. I'm not sure why we have both of these, but they are exactly the same. So it doesn't matter if we use non-color or raw. But most of us are used with non-color, so we just put that in. Then we have some special cases here when we work with chromatic light, meaning images that have wider color spectrum. So like I can show you some example here with black body. So Shift A, and if I go here and I select the black body here with base color, you get this here. And when you change here the values, you get everything between like white and black, and then it goes in different type of oranges to produce like a fire-like thing here. So if I put in a noise texture here, for instance, Shift A and texture, take a noise texture and multiply that. Yeah, so I convert the math, multiply, and put in that to like 10,000, something like that. Take the factor here and take that in here. Then we get, I can take a smaller number, 5,000. Then you see that we get very subtle changes in the color. So we have a really big, a wide color range. And to not lose any of that color range, then we have these extra things here with ACES, CG and ACES. So they preserve a wider color range than just the linear does. So in some circumstances, in some type of photos, then you can use these two. But they are like exceptions, at least for me. So what I use is often just linear or sRGB or non-color. So those three are the most common one used here. Okay, so that was a little bit or most about the image texture. There is even more to get through when you create a new image and so on. But I think this will be enough for now, so you have at least a clue how it works. And in most cases, it's just to drag an image in and everything works. But now you at least know what every field here is doing and how you can use them. So that was the image texture, and we will go to the next texture in the next chapter. So I'll just say bye for now.